So 10.2, continuing on with the discriminant. So it says to determine the discriminant, so all we need to do is b squared minus 4ac. So I have negative 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. It's going to be 25 minus 12, which equals 13. Then it says tell how many and what type of solution. So 13 is positive but not a perfect square. So we're going to have two irrational solutions. And that's what you need to tell. The value of the discriminant is 13, and it tells us there are two irrational solutions. On part B, finding the discriminant, we take 12 squared minus 4 times 9. That's 4 times A times C. Remember, this 4 here is part of the formula. And so I get 144 minus 144, which is 0. So the value of the discriminant is 0, which means I have one rational solution. On part C, to find the discriminant, the first thing I need to do is make my problem equal to 0. So I'm going to move that 5. And then I do b squared minus 4 times A times C. And I have 16 minus 80, which is negative 64. So the value of the discriminant is negative 64. When it's negative, we have two complex solutions. And we're also going to state that they are non-real. In the next example, a little bit of a word problem here. What's important is we have this function, and we're talking about selling shirts, X number of shirts. R is the revenue, or how much money they make. So how many t-shirts must be sold in order for the revenue to be $40,000 per week? So we're going to put in the 40,000 for the R. And then I'm going to solve this with the quadratic formula, which means I need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 40,000. And then plug into the quadratic formula. And here's where you definitely want to be using a calculator. So you get negative 30 plus or minus, and it's going to be 900 minus 800 all over negative 0.01. 900 minus 800 is 100, and the square root of 100 is 10. And kind of running out of room here, but we can actually split this up into two problems. So I'm going to have negative 30 plus 10 over negative 0.01, which is going to equal 2,000. And then I'll have negative 30 minus 10 over negative 0.01, which is going to equal 4,000. So we have two different answers to this problem. How many t-shirts must be sold? The answer is 2,000 or 4,000 shirts. And with either of those amounts, the revenue is going to be $40,000 in that week. So part B, same question, but with a different revenue. So we're going to put in 33,750 for the revenue. And just like last time, I need to move so it's equal to 0. And then plug into the quadratic formula. Use a calculator, and we end up with 900 minus 675, which is 225. Square root of 225 is 15. So we have 2 problems out of this. Solve them both, and we get 1,500 or 4,500. So you really just have to be careful and make sure you plug your numbers in right, and then use a calculator to avoid multiplication issues. All right, so what's up next? Determine the value of x and measure of all sides of the right triangle. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. We have sides A, B, and C. So we have x plus 9 squared equals x squared plus 2x minus 1 squared. Now this is going to be kind of a lot of tedious work. So I'm not going to do a lot of explaining as I go along through this work. I'm just going to be writing it out. And then I need to get it to be equal to 0. And then I notice that all of these are even numbers. So to make life easier on myself, I'm going to divide everything by 2. And this is where I am ready to use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to take it up over here where I have a little bit more space and plug into the quadratic formula. So the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then 121 plus 320 which is 441. The square root of 441 is 21. So I split that up. And I get answers of 8 and negative 10/4, which is negative 5/2, but we are finding the length of the side of a triangle, so I'm going to ignore the negative answer. So I'm going to say 8. But then I have to go back and answer the actual question, which is, what is the measure of the sides of the triangle? So the sides of the triangle, this side, x, this side is 8. And then we have 2 times 8 minus 1, which is 15. And then we have 8 plus 9, which is 17. So the lengths, my final answers, are 8, 15, and 17.